Hi everyone, so today I'll be doing a review on the Caramel Sundays 2 Wick 100% Soy Candle in the scent Pink Pastry. These candles are hand poured in Monroe, Georgia, and the retail price of this candle is $31.99, and that does include shipping. The net weight of this candle is listed as 18.4 ounces. I purchased it during the March restock. It was set to be re-released during the April restock. However, some customers were having issues with performance, and I think unfortunately I'm one of those customers. That's all to say that it will not be present during the April restock. Going back to the scent story, I found quite a few online, so I'll just read the ones that include scent notes. It says, Pink Pastry, the whole family will think you just brought home a box of delicious fried pastry treats. Jelly-filled donuts, to be exact, filling the air with raspberries, wildberry compote, blackberry sugar, fried pastry dough, and powdered sugar. And then another one reads, with a delicious filling of warm wildberry compote, blackberries, sugar, and raspberries encased in a warm glazed pastry topped with powdered sugar. It is sure to tickle all your gourmand senses and have you craving something sweet, pink, and delicious. Top notes: warm wildberry compote, blackberries, middle sugar, raspberries, base pastry dough, powdered sugar, and glaze. The strength on cold for this candle, it's pretty light. It's maybe about a 5 out of 10. But something that I want to briefly touch on is that I feel after I burn this candle, when it re-solidifies, I feel like it's not as strong as it was prior to me ever burning it. So now if I were to extinguish my flames, because it's been currently burning for a few hours, and after it re-solidifies and it cools down, I would say that now the strength is more of a 4 out of 10, so it's not as strong as it was initially. But anyways, my first impressions on this candle, I was a little bit disappointed, mainly because I wanted a jelly donut candle that smelled more like Bath & Body Works Soufgagnac candle, and that was under the label Happy Hanukkah back in 2023. It is discontinued. However, Bath & Body Works has come out with several candles that I think have that same base DNA that Happy Hanukkah did. So there are other candles that smell a bit similar, namely Wildberry Jam Donut, which was actually its predecessor, and I think that was the first time that that particular scent came out. So Wildberry Jam Donut. Then we had Soufgagnac, aka Happy Hanukkah. There has been Mixed Berry Crumble. There is also, to a lesser extent, like let's say Strawberry Strudel, and just other candles that are very similar. So it is more like Kringle's Reserve Candle Jelly Donut. That one's wildly popular. I would say that the similarities, both on cold and while warming, I would say it's a 90 to 95% dupe. And I think the reason why I was a bit disappointed is because I don't know if it's a minority opinion or not, or just everybody thinks this, but I feel like Kringle's Jelly Donut does not smell similar to Bath & Body Works' Soufgagnac Happy Hanukkah candle of 2023. I think that they're a bit different. And one of the reasons why I don't really care for Kringle's Jelly Donut candle, it's because the pastry note, while I detect it, I feel like it's not really accurate to my nose. I think it smells more of this like raspberry, blackberry compote jam, more so on a bread that's not really fried. It almost is the difference between, let's say, a Dunkin' Donuts donut, and if you compare it with, like, let's say, Whole Foods. I feel like Kringle's Jelly Donut and Caramel Sundays Pink Pastry seem like a healthier alternative. So if I was on a diet, I'd probably go for something that smells similar to Pink Pastry versus an actual jelly donut, which to my nose, that is Happy Hanukkah. One thing that I do have to say is that there is a slight difference, and I got it mainly on cold when I compared Pink Pastry to Jelly Donut. And that was that I feel like Kringle Candle's Jelly Donut does not have a wildberry component note. So there was almost something that reminded me slightly of the Bath & Body Works' Wildberry Jam Donut. And yeah, that's one thing that I did notice. So that little bit of difference, I would say it's mainly in the berry note. So since I've been talking about Kringle's jelly donut, those notes are top pastry fruit, mid raspberry, blackberry, citrus, base, butter, and vanilla. One thing that I have to say is when I initially got Kringle's jelly donut, I did pick up on this citrus nuance, but after a few burns, I feel like that went away. But it almost smelled initially like a very bright, freshly made preserve, something like that. Bath and Body Works' Happy Hanukkah candle, that one is pillowy fried donut, sweet jelly filling sprinkled with powdered sugar. So the Bath and Body Works Happy Hanukkah candle, the performance, I do have to say, it has given me more issues. And it's mainly that the wax is slightly discolored. But I feel like since a specific berry isn't called out, I personally believe that there is a bit of blueberries in here, which is not present in Pink Pastry nor Kringle's Jelly Donut. But I do think that there is a raspberry note as well, or maybe just a fruit medley. But going back to caramel sundaes, initially I did trim my wicks beforehand because my wicks were a little bit long. And so for the first burn, it was about 3.5 hours, and unfortunately, I got virtually no scent. Maybe it was a 1.5 out of 10, barely there. I burned that in my medium-sized bedroom, and it didn't have much projection. It was about the same, maybe a 1.5. I think right now you might be seeing that I have the candle Pink Pastry going in a hurricane. So right now, I'm on my 9th burn. Currently, I'm on I would say going on 4.5. So it's a lot longer than what I would normally burn a candle for, but I just wanted to test something out since I know a lot of people burn soy candles almost exclusively in hurricanes, and they tend to burn them for longer periods of time. So if you notice that the wicks are a little bit large and in charge, that's why. And I do have to make a note that I feel like that hasn't made a difference. I feel that at certain times, there are almost instances where I can smell it at around a 4 out of 10, but it's almost as if you're kind of, I guess to give a description, like when you're walking down the street and you get a whiff of someone's perfume, or you get a whiff of just a really good scent, and you turn around and you can't smell it anymore. It's not overly apparent. So it's not coming from a restaurant that isn't moving. It's almost as if it went away and you can't find it anymore. And that's how I feel like this candle is. It does help slightly if I exit the room and re-enter it, but in my medium-sized bedroom, it's not really helpful. I have burned this with the door closed open, with my window open and my window closed, and I feel like it's very light is all I'm trying to say. And I think that the times that I was able to detect the candle, it was when I was not using a hurricane. And I think that's just because my hurricane is a little bit larger, and I don't put the candle that's in a hurricane in a candle stand. So it really has to kind of like push out the fragrance from the hurricane itself. If I hover over it, I am able to detect it, but I'm not always going to be like, staring at my candle like a hawk. So unfortunately, yeah, a hurricane wasn't really helpful, and I'm about halfway done with my candle. Speaking of which, let me take out my hurricane and show you how my candle currently looks like. All right, here's an overhead view of my candle. I did remove the hurricane so you could get a better look, but that has been on since I first lit up my candle. So my flames are a little bit on the large side, and that's because I have been burning it for about 4.5 hours in the hurricane just to test to see if that made any difference. And I still believe that in my case, I think that the performance is slightly, or the strength and throw is slightly better without a hurricane, but it's very minimal, the difference. So yeah, this is my 9th burn, and right now I'm going on maybe 31.5 hours of burn time. So I have varied from my burn time lengths anywhere from 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 4 hours. And it's all pretty much the same experience, is that it's very light. Strength, throw, projection. One thing about this candle is that I feel like I could smell it more after I extinguish it versus when it is actually burning. So it doesn't necessarily linger in the air, but I think that during the time that it is re-solidifying, I notice it more then, especially when I walk by the area that I leave my candle just to cool down and rest. Yeah, so unfortunately, I feel like this has given me a bit of a issue or a big issue in terms of strength and throw. I forgot to mention, but my sister really likes Kringle Candle's Jelly Donut and this pink pastry candle from Caramel Sundays. So I asked if I could burn this in her smaller office space. I put it in a hurricane, and she also had a really hard time spelling it. That, and she has a wallflower refill going on, so she was mainly picking up the wallflower refill versus this candle. And granted, the wallflower refill wasn't new. It was maybe, it had been there for maybe about a week. And if you're familiar with wallflower refills, pretty much the main scent that you get is the first 3 to 7 days. So that's saying a lot, because this candle, competing with the wallflower refill, it was kind of in second place, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, my overall thoughts and opinions on this candle is that while I personally have never purchased a candle and thought, what would make this candle better if it was weaker, anything like that, I know that a lot of people really love Kringle Candle's Jelly Donut. So I would say just stick to that candle because, one, it's already 100% soy, so there's not much of a difference, and it's a two-way, and they're about the same price point. Well, Caramel Sundays Pink Pastry is $31.99 shipped, and the Kringle Reserve Candle is $34, but you can stack an ambassador discount. Maybe you have enough points to redeem for free shipping. So I would say that that'd probably be your only trade-off. But the Kringle candle, the performance is much better. I normally get from Kringle's Jelly Donut the 2-wick, maybe about a solid 8 out of 10, sometimes even a 9 out of 10. I haven't even tried the 4-wick, so I'm sure that's even more intense. But if you've ever thought, hey, I really love Kringle's Jelly Donut, but I wish that it was lighter or weaker, then I would say maybe try out this Caramel Sundays Pink Pastry. But I can't really imagine someone would be in that situation or in that scenario. But who knows? Everyone experiences home fragrance differently. Just to reiterate my point, I feel like this isn't a true, authentic jelly donut, at least not one that I would get at those not fast food, but like those chain restaurants like Dunkin' Donuts, California Donuts, etc. So it doesn't smell super greasy. Again, this one reads more bread to me. So while it's not authentic to me, I still think it's an okay scent. And since I don't really care for it, I am slightly less bothered that I'm not able to detect it. Again, this is very weak in general, unfortunately. That's all to say, I wouldn't repurchase this candle and I would not recommend it. Granted, I don't even know if they being Caramel Sundays, will re-release this candle later down the line or maybe in a future restock. But I will personally stick to Bath and Body Works and their multiple iterations of Wildberry Jam Donut and their subsequent remixes or just re-releases of that candle. I think that I prefer how Bath and Body Works does their jelly donut pastry fried dough notes versus Kringle and Caramel Sundays. But yeah, let me know what has been your experience with pink pastry. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great day. Okay, bye.